Welcome to episode 408 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Jane Hilton, and he's Levon, aka Barcelona. And Levon, we start with the World Cup news today that the Europa League on February 16th, which will be here before we know it. So it's not really World Cup news, it's post-World Cup news. Because, there's the Brazil announcement and all that, and Japan had their announcement. But again, we're already looking beyond the World Cup. We'll have all that content and all that gobbledygook for the World Cup in short order. But we do begin with, of course, the draw for the Europa League, and that is that Barca got Manchester United. And I think for neutrals and everybody else the world over, they're excited to see Barca fans and Manchester United fans, not even the match on the field. They're excited to see those two fan bases go after each other on social media, which, as you and I have been on Twitter recently, is just the wild, wild west again.
Man, I mean, basically, Barca against any English club, doesn't really matter if it's United or Liverpool or Chelsea or Arsenal. Like, they all hate us. So, what can I say? I actually have a good friend, an Irishman who's lived in Manchester for many years, and he's a huge United fan. And he lived in Barcelona. He moved back to Ireland. He lived in Barcelona. And even so, he still comes at me with like all the nonsense that the English media spouts out regarding our club, and I always like correct him, and he goes like, "Oh, okay, so it's like that."
Well, it's funny you mention that, because I was going to say the same thing. Like, between the 2009 and 2011 Champions League finals, the Ronaldo versus Messi debate and all that stuff, I'm still surprised at how much my friends who are Manchester United fans still hate, and I mean viscerally hate, FC Barcelona, especially Sergio Busquets. But then they also always have something negative to say about Iniesta, about Xavi, about those especially like Iniesta, like those players that you think are like kind of untouchable when it comes to like how can you hate certain players? Like, I mean, Kool-Aids can find a reason to hate Luka Modric, but if you're not an FC Barcelona fan, and even you and I, there's an appreciation for what Luka Modric is, right? But like, so very much like Iniesta, like I don't understand how you hate that guy, and yet my Manchester United friends find ways to hate him, because I mean they really are still of a certain generation, still very unhappy about about 2009 and 2011, and not much other time in between.
Which is weird because when we played them in 2009 before the final, there was sort of a kinship between United fans and Barcelona fans, because Manchester United is a hugely respected club in Spain and Catalonia. Like, everybody respected Manchester United because of what Manchester United had done in England all that time. And it was at the time when Barcelona still did not have a shirt sponsor. We had UNICEF on our shirt, so there was still like something pure about our club. At the same time, in Manchester, they were protesting against the looming Glazers takeover. So there was a bit of a kinship between our club, which was not yet as successful, as insanely successful as it has been in the years since then. Our club, owned by its members, and United fans who wanted to prevent their club being sold to an American conglomerate. But yeah, that was then, and this is now. So
Very much now. Yeah, and speaking of the now, I mean, with Xavi now the manager, his quote got a little bit of heat, because I think the quote that I saw was, "Once again, we face the toughest rival in the draw, going to Manchester against a really tough rival with great individual players. Yes, it's the toughest rival once again." And people did, I mean, and I think that got aggregated into people feeling like he was overtly complaining, and I think even some attributed the idea of luck to it. It sounds to me that he is recognizing that Manchester United was, on paper, the toughest draw that Barcelona could have had in this Europa League draw, because they finished second in their group behind Real Sociedad, did not win their group, but this season they have beaten the likes of Liverpool, and they have had moments where they've shown you their best, and then they've had moments where, like in the Europa League, where they showed you not their best, and they can have stinkers on their day under Ten Hag. But for Xavi, did his reaction, I don't know. Were you happy with it? Did you think it was a bit too, just a bit too whiny, if you will, or too negative?
I've only read the quote. I haven't actually seen how he
Hmm.
pronounced it. But if I were the Barcelona manager, or if I were in Xavi's shoes, then what I would have done for a whole week is tell my team that I want to draw Manchester, and tell my team that, hey, I want to draw Manchester United. It's going to be beautiful to beat them at Old Trafford. We always do well against Manchester United. I want to draw Manchester United. I want to draw Manchester United. Manchester United is the club that I want to play against. That's the one that I want to draw. That's the one we want to play against. Like, that should be the message
Hmm.
from a coach to his players. Me as a fan, I don't have that responsibility, neither to the
Yeah,
players nor to the club. Me as a fan, I was like, well, give me the I don't know, the small town Danish club that I cannot pronounce. Because
Midtjylland. Yeah,
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 because
yeah.
I just want to go through to the next round and then give me another easy one, and then go through to the next round, and then we're gonna have like some bigger matches and hopefully win those. Because I just want to get as far as possible. Um, that's me as a fan. As a coach, don't say, "Oh my God, no, this is the toughest opponent that we could have. We are so unlucky." I think he actually said that they were unlucky.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, if it had been Koeman who said it, I would have killed him for it. Since it's Xavi who said it, and we have to give Xavi the benefit of the doubt because he is the ambassador of the World Cup in Qatar. Um, no, I still don't like it that Xavi said it. Like, I really don't like that.
Well, what I will say, the one piece of good news I find, even of what I've seen of Manchester United this year, obviously Barcelona now they hopefully will be healthier. Who knows what reinforcements may come in January? But at present time, the way the two clubs are constructed, the left wing has not necessarily been a devastating spot of the field for Manchester United. It's actually kind of where they do have their most success through the middle of the field. Now, it's not really been the best season from who was one of the best players in all the Premier League last year in Bruno Fernandes. It's kind of not had his typical year. You're getting a little bit of Marcos Rashford rather from the left wing, sure, but again, like left wing has not been great. There's been Anthony Alanga, and Rashford has also struggled for form at times, but their leading goal scorer this year has 4 goals. Like Anthony has 3 goals having come in. The right winger, Martial's got 2. I mean, and then of course Cristiano Ronaldo is going to get all the headlines, but I mean, he also has not been amazing in any regard this season. He clearly is looking like he is his age, which is totally fair for a
Yeah,
player that's that age. Like totally fair to be 37 and kind of play like you're 37 years old. So yeah, Manchester United they might reinforce as well. Of course, there's Premier League money floating around, but yeah, so that's a tie that I think for us who create content, for me who creates content, like I'm in no way sad about Manchester United. Like more people will care, more people listen to the preview, more people will watch the preview, more people will watch our post game analysis. As opposed to if you played a club in the Danish first division, you're just not going to get the same kind of engagement, and people just won't care as much. So I think for me, it's always sign us up for the biggest match, sign us up for the biggest thing, and this is the Europa League, and I think Barcelona are good enough to move on. I always believe that. So the other Europa League matchups in this round of for a chance at the round of 16, because again this is round of 32, Juve and Nantes, Ajax and Union Berlin, Sevilla and PSV, Shakhtar Donetsk and Rennes. Those are the other ones that I think I'll have half an eye on, and the other interesting ties to me. And then obviously the Champions League draw came out the same day, and that will be the same week. We're going to see Real Madrid versus Liverpool and PSG versus Bayern Munich. Those are definitely the highlights there. Where do your allegiances lie for those two? Well, obviously Liverpool, Real Madrid. I don't have to ask that one. I guess PSG, Bayern Munich is the other one I'm asking.
I mean, do you even need to ask? Really, is that a question?
It's Real Madrid, right?
All right, so
You have to back the Spanish team, right?
this is going to be a very short podcast.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to the 2-0 win for Barcelona over Almeria, as Osasuna is just going to be a few hours away by the time you're hearing this, likely. But I did want to go back to Almeria because that match will forever be an important match. Like it's going to be difficult to remember that it was Almeria, but basically Pique Day at the Spotify Camp Nou or the Camp Nou. So Pique is gone. As I promised, I'm going to do more content on him later in the week. We're going to have a whole thing about Pique, about his whole career, whole retrospective. We have a special guest for that. And then obviously throughout the World Cup break, I'm also going to continue to kind of look at his legacy. But obviously bringing you on here, kind of speaking of the day, I think there were obviously social media is the most negative, and I think the most negative things are the ones that are aggregated the farthest. So I think there's certainly some consternation about him this season, about his personal stuff over the last few months, the size of his contract that he had, also including a potential fallout from Messi with a book that just came out about that subject, and how all that would affect his legacy, but how that affects his public perception right now. So I think there was obviously and still is some short-term frustration at him. And I think the question was fair to say, will that blow over, the longer he's retired? And I think the obvious answer is probably yes, because there are many professionals in world football who have retired who've done much, much worse than what Gerard Pique has done to any club in any capacity. And obviously for Barcelona, when you take a breath, take a second, you understand he is an 8-time La Liga champion, a 3-time Champions League winner, 7-time Copa del Rey, Super Cups, Club World Cups, World Cup, and 2 European championships. And the longer it goes on, the longer you find him to be culpable and feel the blame. And I think that is why we saw the Camp Nou celebrating his entire career, right? I think in a moment, you boo him, but over the course of career, of course, you cheer Gerard Pique. He's a legend of the club.
Well, yeah, it's that, but I also think that what a lot of global fans either do not understand or quite openly resent is that more than any other sports in the world, um, soccer is rooted in local pride. So um, many teams support the soccer team of their city, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of soccer teams, well, every soccer team has academies, and in those academies are players that are from the area from the area where that team is rooted. So growing up in Europe, most people will have a friend who plays football at the academy of their local club, of their local professional club. Doesn't
I
mean
mean,
that.
Frances Tomas, who found like the co-host who founded this podcast with me, Frances Tomas, his brother played in La Masia
Yeah,
when
there you go.
they were
Yeah,
Maester, of course. Like
the-
he was on the show. Like we had a La Masia kid
mhm.
on the show. I mean, it wasn't a kid; he in his 30s when he was on. But anyway, that's beside the point. Yeah.
There you go. I grew up in Rotterdam, and even though I did not support Feyenoord because I happened to have fallen in love with Barcelona, um, a lot of people from my city support that club.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter that they're crap; they support that club. But also growing up, I knew like 2, 3 um, um, kids my age or roughly my age who played for that club, who played in their academies. So the local connection to somebody like Piqué, who has very strong ties to the club, who has been a club member since he was a kid, who has grown up. This guy
Yep.
who has had so much success and who has been one of the best defenders in the world was born in a family of Barca fans, just like I was born in a family of Barca fans. So that's what a lot of people who are outsiders, no matter how much you are a fan of the club, um, you are outsiders. Even I live here, and I'm a lot less of an outsider than others. But I still like do not have that Kool-Aid heritage that that Piqué has, or that most of the people in this city have, because soccer is rooted in identity.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
in in this way, part of why um, everybody is so proud of Piqué and why everybody applauds him and recognizes the good rather than the bad after such a long career is because of exactly this. People recognize themselves, and that is very strong. Whereas an international fan might say, I don't know, oh, but he pushed Messi out, this, that. It may be true, it may not be true. We don't know. I don't, even if Pique pushed Messi out, it's not as if Pique created the conditions to push Messi out. Those conditions were created by Bartomeu and all the idiots who voted for Bartomeu. But or people will say, "Oh, Piqué is retiring now because he wants to be president, and it's in his own interest." But fundamentally, Piqué is culé, like very, very, very culé, in the same way that all of the people who are always in the Camp Nou to watch the games are culé, and that is an incredibly strong feeling that people have towards their club, and they recognize that.
Yeah, it is interesting too because I was thinking, historically, and I do connect things to the NBA a lot because this is where the NBA is a sport where there are defined individuals, right? It's a very like you see their faces, and these players or these artist-like characters, and where players choose to go is what dictates who wins the NBA title. Like that, it's like a like for like, 5 guys, 10 guys in the league truly matter. And the league over the last what 7, 8, well, basically actually 12 years since LeBron sat down and said, "I'm taking my talents to South Beach," and it kind of threw everything haywire. Where before that, prior to that, I promise, in the NBA there was this idea that you stick with the team that you're with. Like Kobe Bryant was going to be a Laker forever. That even the likes of a Steve Nash, when he started with the Suns, goes to the Mavs, comes back to the Suns, and yet they adopt him as a Sun. So it was weird to see him in a Laker uniform then. Or Dirk Nowitzki was going to be a Maverick forever. Tim Duncan was going to be a Spur forever. And that was what was prevalent. Magic Johnson would have never worn another jersey that wasn't the Lakers. And the same thing with Larry Bird. And, with Jordan, it got weird with the Wizards at the end there, but that was like an ownership thing, and I don't want to talk about that. But the point is, in modern football, right, like we saw what it meant or how odd it was with the Messi situation, how Messi wanted to be a one club player. Potentially, go and retire it and it was always whatever at the very end, but truly wanted to be a one club player when he was recognizable in his, in his great form. And PK is one of those examples where even though he went to Manchester United to kind of find himself, he is a one club player because he's also a one club person. Like again, his grandfather was on the board. Like he was the first day he was born, he was registered as a socio. And so there are players who you expect to come back to the club, and there are some legends that do and some legends that don't. But PK, there's no other place for him. Oddly enough, though, he does own FC Andorra, which is so weird because, the more money that you pump in them, maybe they're going to be a first division side at some point in the near future, even they're like 11th and second division. But what I found so interesting when I'm thinking about PK and watching him get applaud against Almeria was the two things that stand out. And again, I'm kind of ruining some of the second show this week, but here we are. But, he was kind of against Almeria, just to focus on that. It was a throwback machine where his passing to the wings was crisp. The diagonal balls were there. Like it was just a vintage PK performance. Physically, he was able to handle the attackers that were coming his way. I mean, yes, Almeria kind of helped out with the formation that they played, and they were unequipped tactically to deal with what Barcelona presenting to them. Barca had 16 shots in that first half, which is the most shots without a goal since 2007 or 2011 against Real Zaragoza, actually, who's been in the second division all the way since then. So yeah, that's the first time since then that they've had that many shots in the first half without getting a goal.
Right.
So you obviously felt like the dam was going to break, but for that PK there and another clean sheet, that's 11 of 13 games this season in the Liga that Barcelona putting up clean sheets, and PK was a part of that.
I mean, there's only like a very few people who who analyze the game properly, and they'll tell you that the second half of the season, the second half last season, PK was easily our best defender, including
You and I discussed that
yeah,
plenty. Of course, he was.
including plenty of games in which he played next to Araujo. He was not as flashy as Araujo, but he was so incredibly solid. And I think what happened this season was not a reflection of, like, Piqué did not play because he is our fifth or sixth best defender. That's not the reason that Xavi did not play him. Um, Xavi simply thinks about the club, looks at Piqué's salary, looks at the new players that have come in, Koundé and Christensen, um, and Alonso, and he's like, well, if I play Alonso um, instead of Piqué, then Piqué is going to leave, and that is going to be extremely positive for our club, given the financial situation that we are in. Like,
30 million euros.
yeah,
It's 30 million euros. Like, I know we cried last week about the Champions League, but by retiring, what PK does by renouncing that 30 million euros, that makes up for more than double, almost 3 times what Barcelona miss out by missing out on the Champions League knockout stage.
now it's
So
more than 30 million euros because Barcelona pay tax on that as well.
yeah, so when tax is involved, it's again going to be pretty much exactly 3 times what they missed out in that Champions League pot.
Yeah. So Alonso does not play instead of Piqué on merit.
I feel the hot takes are coming, Levon. What a hot take. Marcos Alonso defenders are coming for you, I guess.
And I don't think Marcos Alonso has been half as bad as people say this season. So yeah, no, that's my take on Piqué.
Yeah,
And
I think too that again I'm going to get into it more on the second show this week, but I think just like Messi, I think what makes him so good and Busquets as well is their consistency, and I think PK is the interesting one too because Busquets was the same thing for a long, long time, and now that we're seeing as he ages and as he's been aging, you could almost argue, other than this year with PSG, the last 2 seasons for Messi, even you could see like a little bit of cracks of age, a little bit of what he can't do to the same level that he used to. Not that he's doing something wrong. It's not that he's making a mistake, but just like what can he do to the levels he did. And PK is interesting because as like last year when he was 34 years old, again, I think it was probably one of the better seasons he ever had, like individually, not as a team, but individually, one of the better seasons he ever had because PK was so odd that he had that ability, not ability, but he was so consistent as then he was always definitely going to be on the first team on the team sheet for Barcelona, which is a team contending for Champions League. But he would have bad seasons. Like his last season under Guardiola, before Guardiola left, was like a bad season by Gerard Pique. But throughout his time, it was still always Pique, right? He paired with Puyol, Mascherano, Titi, Lenglet, Araujo. And he said, when I'm no longer needed. And he's been consistently needed through it because you could say he may have blocked other players, right? Like obviously Todibo, Yuri Mina, and you could throw Oscar Miguel in there and even Mark Bartra. But none of those 4 I just named were ever going to take his spot. Like it wasn't.
I would have blocked Jerry Mina.
Right. So, well, yeah, especially after the Levante game. But anyway, and by the way, Yuri Mina and his defensive issues were the reason why Ernesto Valverde did not have a perfect season in La Liga, and it's not talked about differently. Let's go that way. But anyway, so what he said, that being Gerard Pique, I'm going to leave when I'm no longer needed. And just like you said, with Koundé, Araujo, Christensen, and Eric Garcia, I know that all 4 of them have been hurt at some points this season, including even last week, that all 4 of them were hurt at the same time. But you carry 4 center backs with you in almost any team. Like you don't carry
5. You carry
4 center backs. And not to mention the club is also moving for a free agent signing. When I say free agent signing, I'm saying Inigo Martinez. We're all saying Inigo Martinez.
Yeah, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but
well, you said it. So let me hear that. What your issue with Martinez free agent signing is? Well, they have to buy him out, right? They have to buy out his contract with Athletic Club. Yeah, or it's one of those situations.
No, Athletic Club is not going to. Athletic. Bilbao does not need money. They're good with money, so we're not going to buy him out because they will just ask too much money. But even if he comes for free, he still costs money. Like nothing's for free in this world. And you have Koundé, you have Araujo, Christensen. That's already like three players that, and Eric Garcia, who I still think is a good player. Like, why would you limit people's minutes? Then you also have Alonso, who can play center back if we renew him. People can say, "Oh no, Alonso," blah, blah, blah. But come on, if he's your fifth choice, that's okay. I can live with that. We played Alonso against Almeria. We were great. Um, I also think that we should probably end up keeping Frenkie de Jong. That gives you another option at center back. So already now, this season without Pique, we have 6 options at center back. Alonso being the probably the worst out of those 6. So is that where we want to invest? I would use everything that we have for a right back and maybe another midfielder.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the interesting thing too. It sounds like that right back that they're looking at is Juan Foyth from Villarreal, depending on his injury and how he returns from that. And if those rumors are true that it is Foyth, he also has an ability to play center back as well. So it again is another odd thing where with Marcus Alonso and Foyth, like this team and this back line is built for this 3-4-3 situation or 3 at the back situation. But Xavi said many times, like he's not going to move away from the 4 at the back. And that's what he's comfortable with now. And we see the emergence of Balde is very helpful. So you think that if Foyth can play right back, then he will play right back, and Barcelona will go forward that way. Now, speaking of not really the right back spot, or I guess we could do Balde next before we even hit Dembele against Almeria. And I find, Levon, as I'm going through these 5 headlines, I made an excuse. The one week somebody yelled at me because Lewandowski had a goal in one of the games. I don't remember which one. And somebody yelled at me in the comments and was saying, "Hey, how come one of your headlines wasn't Lewandowski? It was one of the 4-0 wins, and he had a goal." And I said, because if the way the league is going this year, Robert Lewandowski is likely going to be one of the 5 headlines like almost every week. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to have him be a headline every single week, and I don't want to have to put him on the cover. I want to try to highlight other things, because we could just be talking about Robert Lewandowski scoring a goal every week, and I'm not adding anything new other than breaking down the goal.
It kind of feels good that we can win a game without him scoring.
It does. Yeah. Especially a team that was playing. Well, I think the better part of that was that it was a team playing 5 at the back as well. And we could talk about the Balde thing here now for a second, because, I've been trying to avoid kind of having Balde be in every headline every week, but Balde, especially against Almeria, you could tell. I mean, that's why we love young players. That's why they're so much fun, because you can actually track and see in almost a linear fashion when young players improve. And you could see the gears in their head moving, and you could see them and their quality from as they gain confidence. You could see it almost in live time. And so that was his best game at right back. And the argument that Balde might be Barcelona's best left back at the moment and best right back at the moment against Almeria, like that's a totally fair question to ask because of what he was able to do against Almeria. Because unlike the previous 2 weeks when he played at right back, his positional sense coming underlapping under Dembele and then overlapping under Dembele, it seemed like they worked on it in training. His timing was better. He was much more forward-thinking with his runs toward the middle of the field, understanding positionally how he had to get back. Defensively, he was still, when he was cutting out attacks with his opposite foot, just fine. And, I mean, it wasn't even an improvement of his right foot, but, I mean, he was just better. Like, again, his underlapping runs were very helpful. Torres coming into the middle and adding someone else in the middle was also helpful against 5 at the back. They were overloading the middle of the field. That being FC Barcelona was. And I think, I just wanted to highlight Balde because he's continues to get better and better. And again, it's almost by week. You can see what he's understanding, what he's adding to his game. And I thought he was excellent against Almeria.
I think he's been a revelation. Sergio Roberto is our best right back. Come on. Sergio Roberto already scored 2 goals and he doesn't even play all that much. So let's not like completely disrespect Sergio Roberto either, because I think he's been playing quite well under Xavi. He's not the right back that we want, but he's been doing quite well. But Balde has been a revelation, and it's so much fun to see. I like him a lot better on the left and on the right.
For sure.
And I actually think that his game against Valencia on the right was better than Almeria. Almeria were just so incredibly poor. My God, they were terrible. They were terrible. They kept like making horrendous passes. No, they were just terrible. Um, but yeah, Balde is fun to watch, and everybody is rooting for him. Who isn't? Who isn't? Hopefully, he renews. And um, he's not on that preliminary list to go to the World Cup, is he?
I don't think so. Well, maybe Spain. I think he might be, or he might have been added to that preliminary list, but the official roster hasn't been released yet.
Okay,
But I
so
think he is on. I think he is on the preliminary list.
he is.
Because I think it was like there was like I think Enrique said like 5 left backs or something were there. I don't remember which ones, but
Okay. I
yeah.
mean, I hope he's not. I hope he won't be called up because that will raise his price.
Right, and his agent is Jorge Mendes, if I remember
Exactly. Yeah.
right. So
Exactly.
yeah, so that'll be a whole debacle as well. So in front of him was Dembele as well against Almeria, where it was interesting for Dembele because last Friday, Jaleel the Purist and I talked all about his decision making, right? Like where his first pass takes him, where the 50-50 ideas that he has in his head, and when he chooses to make the right choices. And in that first goal in particular, I mean, well, firstly, I want to say that Busquets ball, just a tremendous ball. Like a reminder that like that 50-yard diagonal ball on a dime to get in behind the left back right into the path of Dembele. What that pass did for Dembele is it made sure that Dembele he couldn't, not say he couldn't make the wrong decision, but it set him up to make the right decision. Where if he was able to bring that down the way he did, and it was a quality touch to bring it down as well, he was able to take himself directly inside because he was around the outside back. He had inside positioning, and he was able to go immediately cutting inside. Now, to your point as well, Almeria, awful job stepping. Like nobody cut out or moved even anywhere near him, and he had a shooting lane 10 miles long. But
Yeah,
that
but
said,
that was not easy to defend. Like,
well, I'm saying he took advantage of the opportunity, full speed, cutting inside, and knew exactly what he wanted to do before he did it. And that pass again really set him up. So a lot of credit to Busquets. But yeah, Dembele showing you that once again that when he makes the right decisions, he's unguardable. He
yeah,
continues to be unguardable when he makes the right choices, and it's all down to whether or not did he making the right choice.
that pass was very interesting because where I sit in the stadium, I'm like right behind Busquets when he makes that pass. Like the corner where Dembele ran
Mm.
into, I'm in the opposite corner.
Mm-hmm.
And when Busquets made the pass, we were looking at it like, where the hell is he passing to? Because it looked like so far away from everybody. And of course, then we saw Dembele run onto it, and I was like, oh, okay, he's actually going to reach that. But yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing.
But
Um,
then, of course, in that first half, before that goal scored, we see Lewandowski comes in as the additional man in midfield. Terrific vision from him, frees up Ferran Torres, who Ferran Torres, I thought, and Ansu was the same thing, where if they had scored a goal, we would have called it a good performance from both of them. But because they didn't, not say they were criticized, but I think they were good, but they didn't score the goal, and that's the only but with their performances. But
Ferran went off to a huge applause. I don't know if you guys caught that on TV, but
well, yeah, I mean,
I,
on TV,
I don't
on
remember
TV, you actually
I
saw
don't remember the
PK.
Camp Nou applauding.
PK was pointing to the crowd, telling them to cheer him as well, like
Okay,
louder, louder. Yeah, PK was asking for a louder applause for Torres because I
okay,
mean,
I did
and
not see
that's
that.
I agree. I thought he was good. I'm glad that the people in the stadium recognize that. But
I don't think the stadium has ever. I don't think the Camp Nou has ever applauded Ferran Torres as much as yesterday. What was it?
yeah, I think it was fair. I mean, I think he set the tone.
Wednesday,
I mean,
Tuesday, I forget.
Tuesday, yeah. But I mean, he set the tone from minute one.
Saturday. What
KIC,
am I talking about?
yeah, who knows what day it is? Yeah, tomorrow, Osasuna. But anyway, so KIC, the former Santos player that Barca were linked with, Ferran Torres starting the game well against him. He had a good move, showed a lot of ambition, and yeah, again, I'm talking about that play with Dembele. Lewandowski frees up Torres. Dembele's wide open, then chooses to go with the header instead of trying to kick the ball into the net. But the header might not have been the wrong choice, but the header goes right at the keeper. And from the TV and from the replays, obviously in slow motion, it looks like it was easier than it was. At the stadium, when you saw the header from Dembele, did it look like that was his only option?
Yeah. I mean, he didn't have to head it straight at the goalkeeper, but that was his only option. I was surprised um, that Ferran Torres passed it to him, and I do not think that that was a great pass
Hmm.
because at that distance you do not expect that ball to be played at your head from relatively closely, from a relatively short distance. So I did not rewatch the game though, so I only saw it that one time live in the stadium. I do not have the benefit of replay here, um, but I think Dembele could have done better. But I also understand that he was surprised by receiving that pass and that it was not as easy as it looked.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the second goal, then if Frankie De Jong scores it, and I think it's a not only a good goal by Frankie De Jong, but it's a good Barcelona goal. The second one
Mhm.
was where Balde pushes forward to the middle, as I was speaking about. So Balde starts the move, receives from Ter Stegen, pushes the ball forward, coming through the middle of the shed, not overlapping. Dembele basically keeps everybody occupied out on the wing. Balde lays off for Pedri rather, who delivered a really accurate ball to Alba, crosses field, who puts a quality ball into Ansu. While Ansu couldn't score right at the goalkeeper, Frankie De Jong was right there. And as I kind of said in the five headlines, I felt like that Almeria game, and maybe you had the same response. I don't think Frankie did anything necessarily like unbelievable or like beyond, having some kind of 10 of 10 performance. But I felt like Frankie's fingerprints were all over that game. And I felt like Barcelona kind of took on the characteristics, or Barcelona were kind of, how do I say this? They had kind of a Frankie De Jong game. Like that's what it felt like against Almeria. That Barcelona were playing like Frankie De Jong, a Frankie De Jong built team, if you will, if that makes any sense. But even though Frankie didn't have like the most amazing performance, it was. I felt like his fingerprints were all over that game. Barcelona were moving well. They were moving between lines well. They were dribbling. I mean, they weren't even. It wasn't that they were setting themselves up with the pass. They were setting themselves up with the dribble, which is opening up the passing lanes, which again I think really says a lot about what Frankie De Jong does at a high level.
Mhm.
And I just felt like it was, I don't know. Am I overdoing a little bit too much with that?
Yeah, you are. Um,
Thank you.
at the same at the same time, I don't think that we've ever lost a game in which Frankie De Jong plays well.
I don't think. Yeah, I mean that's a good question, but I'm not sure. Yeah,
I'm
I mean I
I'm,
think.
I'm trying to think of a game where when he plays well, we lose. Um,
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like been a Champions League game in years past that I can bring up, but I'm trying to remember which one it was.
all right. I mean,
I'd have to go
may,
in my notes.
maybe our listeners can help us out. And
Yeah. Let us know in the comments. I mean, yeah, I need to ask for more engagement. Yeah, let us know in the comments below, or tweet at us if you're listening to this audio version. If you can think of a time when Frankie De Jong played well and Barcelona failed to get the win. It's a good question. Well, okay. I think. Do you have anything else from the Almeria game in the stadium, or any thoughts on any players we didn't hit? Because if
um,
not, I think we'll
I,
wrap that one up.
I sat next to I don't know, he was maybe 65, 70-year-old guy, um, who uh, who started cheering like crazy. He was there with his wife, and his wife is Catalan. Um, and he started cheering like crazy when Lewandowski missed the penalty. Um, but cheering like in a funny way, without like screaming. But he couldn't control his body, so he just like started waving his arms around and shaking in joy and happiness. And then I looked at him, and I was like, yeah, he supports Almeria. We're here for him. Um, and he was such a fun guy. And the first half, every 2 minutes we could score a goal. That guy lived in between a heart attack, um, the second before we missed a chance, and an orgasm the second after we missed a chance.
Goodness, goodness.
it
Yeah,
was
it's
it was so
interesting.
much
I mean, that was
so
kind of
much
funny
fun
note.
to watch the game with him.
Well, it's funny note on the penalty that you saw PK, kind of gesture towards Lewandowski. I think they, oftentimes for Barcelona, they do leave those things up to, not to say up to chance, but you expect it's going to be Lewandowski. But also if there's like a moment or somebody choosing to take the penalty, Barcelona players are generally, they have those discussions. Like it's not decided in pregame usually.
The stadium was chanting for Pique to take it.
Right. And so he kind of gestured, that being Pique did, gestured towards Lewandowski to tell everybody, oh, he's going to take it. And I will say about that like people compare it to the Mascherano penalty. But the reason that's not the same thing at all is because Gerard Pique is the only defender the only center back, if you will, in FC Barcelona history to score a goal in 14 consecutive seasons. So if you need to watch Pique goals, like you can literally watch one from every season he's been in the first team. So he's got his goals. Don't worry about it. Like that has nothing to do with his legacy. Like Mascherano scoring the penalty was his one goal in, 213 matches or something right? Like it was however many he played for the club.
He had a couple of own goals.
Mascherano did. Yes, he did.
Own goals.
But anyway, so speaking of goals,
hold on. And also because they asked Xavi about that after the game, and they asked Xavi, well, hey, why didn't Pique take the penalty? And Xavi just deadpanned it and was like, hey, we were not playing a friendly.
I mean, look, Real Madrid dropped points today against Rayo Vallecano. If Pique takes that,
they lost. They dropped all 3 points. Yeah, if Pique takes it and misses, and it ends up costing us the game.
0-0. Yeah.
Then again, like the moment that Lewandowski took that walk, the run up, I already knew he was going to miss it.
Oh yeah.
It just looked off. It looked off.
Yeah, one of his worst penalties that I've seen. So anyway, last little note here. The Barça Femení won their 9th straight over Real Madrid in El Clasico, 4-0 win. Goals by Sotogozovic, Patri, Aitana, and Claudio Pina. The big difference in that game, or the reason why, while the Spanish league is getting better and catching up, if you will, I use that in quotes, catching up a bit, Levante really gave him a fight. Levante is a good team. Claudio Pina dropping into the midfield, kind of doing what Lewandowski did to show things up. But Pina, her movement in the midfield, no answer for Real Madrid had. And then the one subplot after that game, too, that you might have noticed was Aitana gave the cold shoulder to the Madrid players who had stayed on with the Spanish national team after that conflict with the manager led to a number of players leaving the team, including Aitana, Patri, and Irene Paredes, all Barcelona players. So likely the Spanish national team will have 0 Barcelona players at the Women's World Cup, the upcoming Women's World Cup. So that's, if you saw anything like that, that's what that the Barça Femení against Real Madrid, even on the women's side of something, there is something else going on. Like there is something behind the scenes and there is a subplot, which, I mean, not say that enriches what's on the field, but it always makes it more interesting. So anyway, that's it. Time for you to go to bed, Levon. I appreciate this. And we are still going to, I'll hear from you during the World Cup break. We'll talk to you again very soon. So follow him.
As long as we talk about Barcelona and not the World Cup.
Well, there will be news, and I think there's always some kind of transfer business and things to talk about. We'll drum something up, or you and I think have not to say we'll do this, but maybe one of the ideas. Again, let us know in the comments. Engagement. Let us know what you want Levon and I to talk about. But he and I did have a pseudo beginnings of an argument about Luis Figo and what his legacy is in Spanish football. So maybe we'll entertain that in the near future or something. But anyway, so follow him on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the Barcelona Pod, Facebook group, YouTube, Patreon, merch store. You know where to find us. So thanks so much for listening to the show. Until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Forza Barça.
Visca el Barça.